Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Now, here's your host, Aslan Hajavandi.
Friday, Junior, Friday Eve, whatever you want to call it. It's the Thursday edition of Wake Up War Chant. First of the month, indeed, wake up, as the five young men from Cleveland serenaded us back in the 90s. I'm Aslan. You know that obviously already. Corey Clark joining us. Corey, how are you, man?
Good, buddy. Why is it obvious that they know you already, but it's not obvious that they know me?
Well, because the Open has, you're listening to Wake Up War Chant. Now here's your host, and it says
right.
My name. Yeah.
Hey, what about that? We can't get me in the opening?
Chill out over there, man. Come on, earn your stripes. Earn your stripes first.
Just saying. Yeah.
No, we do need to get that done pretty soon. I'll get on top of it. It's a new month.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah, no, you are. You're a big deal, man. That's for sure. You deserve equal stake in the namesake of the program and all that good stuff. This program, though, brought to you by For the Table Hospitality, 3 locations over in College Town. Check them on out. Madison Social, Central, and Township. March 1st, man, so we made it through February. It's all downhill from here. Spring football starts in about 20 days or so, but who's counting? But the basketball team trying to make the dance. It is March Madness, after all, soon approaching. They dropped the contest up in Clemson last night. Let me pull up the final score. That one was 76-63 for Clemson. What a bizarre game, Corey. Corey was actually up there covering that game. Looking at the stats, I watched most of the game, but Florida State outshot Clemson from the field as well as behind the arc. Free throws obviously were a bit of a bugaboo down the stretch, but just a bizarre game. They actually played really well, I thought. And it seems like, I don't know, you put all this energy in this game. Watching this game wind down, it was like, I feel like Florida State's going to lose this game, and it's going to be such a letdown and tough to get off the mat and then face Boston College afterwards. But before we get to the Boston College game, obviously your thoughts from last night's loss, again, 76-63 to Clemson.
Well, yeah, I think the final score obviously isn't indicative of how close it was. I thought Florida State played really well. I thought that was as good as they looked defensively in a really long time. And that's not saying much because they've been abhorrent defensively for the last month or so. But I thought they were really good. They challenged a lot of shots. Clemson just made some tough shots. And, they got some offensive rebounds. Florida State couldn't get a couple rebounds when they needed them. And, Clemson has some shot makers. And they made some really tough shots. And Florida State did not. And their leading scorer had a pretty awful game, maybe his worst game of the season, at a really bad time. And, you need more. I tweeted it after the game, but, Florida State isn't good enough for Terrence Mann to be that bad and still beat a good team. It just can't happen. They were in the game despite Terrence Mann, and then obviously whenever that was, 2 or 3 minutes left, he missed the 3 straight free throws and then missed the putback after the Kofor three-pointer. That kind of summed up his night, and then they hit a 3 on the other end to put the game away. But, it's weird. It's interesting that you brought that up, if it's going to be hard for them to rebound from this game because they did put so much into it and so much life into it, or maybe they can build on it and say, look, when we play like that, even if our best player doesn't play all that well, we can still beat really good teams. If we play that hard, and this is the truth, if they play that hard and with that kind of urgency against Boston College on Saturday, they're going to win that game. But that's a big if with this team. But if they can build on that, as opposed to letting it kind of deflate them, then yeah, they should win on Saturday, and I still think they're fine for the tournament. But they got to play. They got to play like they did on Wednesday night. They have to bring that same kind of energy and emotion Saturday, or they can lose. Boston College beat Syracuse by 15 on Wednesday night, and they have one of the best players in the league that can win a game by himself. So it's certainly not a gimme that Florida State can win on Saturday. Will win on Saturday.
Again, as Corey referenced or inferred, the best player on Florida State's team being Terrence Mann, 1 of 9 from the floor, 0 of 3 from behind the arc, 1 of 3 at the line. He had the makeup on the
really 1 of 4 because
the lane
he 1 of 4
violation.
Because he got the 3 and he missed all 3.
Yeah,
because of the lane violation.
And I mean, this predates back to what game was it where he had those 2 free throws he missed late in the game, and then it was against Louisville on the road where he missed 2 free throws.
Yes, he missed. Yeah, it made that great block to kind of make up for it. But, yeah, he missed those 2 free throws that could have iced the game.
Yeah, so Terrence definitely working through something. Brian Angola snapped out of his schneid a little bit, 4 of 7 from the floor, 3 of 4 from behind the arc. The bummer about this whole thing is that this would have been such a great segment because we would have talked about Florida State obviously solidifying their position in the NCAA national tournament, and we also would have talked about the emergence of Ike Obiagu, who was an absolute bright spot. What a fantastic effort out of him last night, Corey.
Yeah, and I was talking to Phil Kofer and Angola after the game, and they talk about what he can mean for them in these last few games. He's such a presence defensively. I mean, he's got 11 blocks in the last 2 games, and I think he's played a total of like 26 minutes. I mean, so so that's not even what a starter plays for a whole game. So if he's playing 33 minutes a night, he's on pace to block like 14 shots. I mean, it's incredible. But he is such a liability on the other end that they can't play him for large stretches. But, quite honestly, Clemson, when they made their shots down the stretch to kind of put the game away, it was with Obiagu on the bench. The problem is if you play him late in games, they can go to Haka Ike or Haka Obi or whatever they're going to want to call it. And, he's so bad from the free throw line, you can't afford to play him late in games. But, man, think about what that guy's going to be like in a couple of years. That guy he could be the best defensive player Florida State's ever had. I mean, that's a good team. That's a good team. The last 2 teams they've played are good teams offensively. And he had 11 blocks in 25 minutes. I mean, he just changes things.
Strong praise from Corey about Ike Obiagu. Florida State with the loss drops to 8-9 in conference, 19-10 overall. They'll wrap things up against Boston College in the regular season, and then obviously in the ACC tournament against a to-be-determined opponent. So, again, just the bizarre sort of thing of this team bouncing back, playing well after they lay a goose egg. But what do they really have to show for it here? I guess ultimately, like you said, Corey, I guess they kind of know the barometer of what they need to play at if they want to be successful from here on out. I mean, this team, if they play with that urgency, like you mentioned, against Clemson and Terrence, breaks out of this sort of, rut and Brian Angola maintains, maybe this step forward that he's taken. What are you snacking on, by the way, bud? Like, it sounds like you're like snapping open like Diet Cokes left and right, it sounds like you're putting like zip ties
really?
on
no,
something.
I'm not snacking on anything at all.
Really?
Just the natural noises that emit from my face. But
fantastic.
It's not anything I'm snacking on.
All right, I was about to tell you, man. Chill out. Everybody's trying to make it through to their lunch break without having to eat anything, and you're not helping out. But false start on my behalf. Obviously, I don't know. I mean, it's I feel pretty good about Florida State. I mean, for I don't know, 38 minutes of that game, felt really good about the way they play with the effort and. Was like, shoot, man, they could sneak a win in the tournament if they're able to make it. And I feel like you would just hope that despite this lack of maturity or experience that Leonard Hamilton keeps referencing, that hopefully they grew up last night and they're able to get past Boston College, because it feels like that's the last hurdle to really punch their ticket. And at the end of the day, this is a team that we all thought was going to be on the bubble. They're on the bubble. Win one more game and you get in the tournament. And at the end of the day, that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we're not bracketologists, so we can't say for sure that if they win one more, they're in the tournament. But they have so many good wins. They have a lot of quadrant 1 wins, whatever those things are now, and some quadrant 2 wins that they just have to avoid a bad loss. If they can get to 20 wins, pick up more than anything, avoid losing to Boston College. And quite frankly, if you lose at home to Boston College with the tournament on the line, well, you don't need to go to the tournament. If this is for your tournament life and you can't get up and play well and play hard against Boston College, well then, you don't deserve to be in March Madness anyway. What'll be interesting is, they really want to avoid that first night in Brooklyn of the ACC tournament. To do that, I believe they have to beat Boston College and then also hope that Notre Dame loses. Now, Notre Dame plays at Virginia, so a loss is a distinct possibility there. So they can avoid the first day of the ACC tournament if they take care of business on Saturday. And they're not a great team. They're about where they deserve to be. You know what I mean? They got close. They got lucky in some wins this year. They're not a great team. They're not an experienced team. They're not an NBA talented team. But they've done enough through the first 29 games of this season to put themselves in position on game 30 to, I think, almost sew up an NCAA tournament berth. I guess what could happen is if they somehow have to play like a Pitt in the first round and lose to Pitt, well, then they're done. So, they might have to win a game in the tournament depending on who that first game is. But I think if they beat Boston College, get to 9-9 with the wins they have, only one really bad loss, I think you're in. But that would be a success for this season. And you're right. I think if they get into the tournament, I think they could do a little damage. They could make a little noise because they do when they play well. They can play with anyone. They just, other than Wednesday night when I did think they played well, they haven't done a whole lot of playing well lately.
And all they got to do right now is just get a lead now. Just get a lead, put in Ike, and then Ike's going to block everything. It'll be fantastic. Saturday, the regular season finale at home versus Boston College, 2 o'clock. Fill the Tucker, everybody. Fill the Tuck. Populate Amsterdam, all that good stuff. When we come back on Wake Up War Chant, warchant.com, our employer, but being objective, probably the best forum in all of collegiate sports. But it hosted potentially the worst thread in sports message board history. We'll talk about it right after this here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Welcome on back into Wake Up War Chant here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. He is Corey Clark, senior writer for warchant.com. We didn't mention this in the first segment. I don't know how many people have Spotify. I think that's what a lot of cool kids use to download their music or stream their music these days, Corey. Apparently now Wake Up War Chant has made it onto Spotify. So if you don't get us on iTunes or Google Play or the Podbean app or YouTube, or I don't even know how you consume your podcast, but you have another avenue now, folks. You can hop on the internet and get us on Spotify. The show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. Check them on out over in College Town, Madison Social, Central, and Township. You'll like them. And a reminder before we get back into the nuts and bolts of things, hop on over to warchant.com, go onto the Tribal Council, and submit your question for tomorrow's Renegade Express mailbag. I've taken a peek in there. We've got some good questions, Corey. It'll be a good show tomorrow. I can feel it.
All right, good. I can't wait.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this for a second here. So we don't want to give away too many secrets on the Tribal Council because that's a premium content item for warchant.com subscribers, but it's the best forum, the best community, I think, in all of college sports, man, especially on the Rivals.com network. And I had a couple notifications pop up on me that I was tagged in a thread, and I'm like, what is this all about? Well, apparently somebody, and it's a slow season, so we're all looking for something to talk about besides shirtless photos of guys. And, man, there were some really good shirtless photos on the internet yesterday of Florida State players, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Real quick, I saw the one of, like, the wide receivers. Ow, ow! And I'm pretty sure Noonie Murray has, like, a 12-pack. It goes up to his neck.
Yeah, man.
It's crazy. If I did look like that, I would never wear clothes.
Yeah, I would.
I guess I'd wear shorts. Maybe. If optional. But I would never wear a shirt in my life.
No dongs
I just couldn't. If I looked like that, are you crazy? All the work they put in, I'm shirtless in chemistry class. I'm shirtless at church. It doesn't matter. I would be shirtless if I looked like that.
Or at least...
Anyway, sorry to hijack. Go ahead.
At least go like Ezekiel Elliott and do the crop top sort of... jersey if you are Noonie. But we'll get back to that perhaps later.
Yeah, but then you're covering up some of those abs. I want everybody to see every single ab that I have.
Got to leave something for the imagination, Corey. This is what happens, man. You go all in, when things. You just got to, you got to slow play some of these things, entice people, build
Let it be
up,
a nice
man.
surprise. That's a good point. That's a good point, too.
All right, so it was a thread titled, "Who would you root for in a hypothetical college football playoff final with Florida State versus Texas A&M?" So off the jump, it's a very bizarre question. Who would you root for in a hypothetical college football playoff final? Florida State versus Texas A&M. Well,
I think it was phrased like Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher,
Corey,
or Florida
stop.
State with
Corey,
Willie Taggart.
I'm trying to entice.
Sorry.
I'm setting up the story. I'm the storyteller. You are the
My fault.
statistician. You are the humor. You are the genius. Let me just set the table for a second. So
My bad.
Off the jump, the title is like, who do you root for? Florida State versus Texas A&M. You're like, well, duh. But it's a poll question. Perhaps there would be a variable in here, a wrinkle to help, maybe sway it. The options are, would you root for Florida State, coached by the Taggart train, or Texas A&M, coached by Jimbo Benedict Fisher? This poor guy, I'm not going to say his handle on here because he knows who he is, and I'm sure he's looking at himself in the mirror. I mean, it makes no sense. The question makes no sense. Why would anybody root for Texas A&M over Florida State? Especially
on a Florida State message board.
Yeah. When Texas A&M in this situation, this hypothetical, is realistically coached by the dude that nobody likes right now, who's Jimbo Fisher. This guy got roasted. A poor guy. Hopefully he shows himself back on the tribal council. It's going to take a while to get over this one, though, I imagine.
Did you see what I posted in the thread?
No, but I saw that you liked a post
you
of
did see that.
somebody.
I did that for your benefit.
Yeah, thanks, man. Somebody shooting arrows at me, man. With friends like you, who needs enemies? I did not see.
I think the post was like, other than Aslan, who here even likes Jimbo Fisher? And I liked that comment because I thought it was funny.
It was,
but also I knew you'd see that I liked it.
Yeah, no, it was. No, I did see your post.
When I posed,
yeah, Mila Kunis.
I posed. Yeah. Would you rather? It was the equivalent of asking, would you rather have a romantic encounter with Mila Kunis or Mike Tirico? I mean, it's such a no-brainer that it defies belief. Unless he was being, it was a weird joke. Like he was being like, I can't even imagine what. But anyway, yeah, it was really bizarre, but it was really funny. And people, if you're not subscribed to War Chant, let me just say this. We have a lot better threads than that normally. Don't judge War Chant just on that one thread or that one poll, because we have a lot of real thoughtful stuff and thoughtful commentary. We don't ask Florida State fans if they'd rather Texas A&M win a national championship. Typically.
Was he thinking of asking who you root for, Florida State with Jimbo Fisher or Texas A&M with Willie Taggart right now? But still, though, I mean,
I was thinking maybe like Texas A&M or Florida.
Right.
Who would you root for?
Okay, that makes
and
much
that actually
more
is
sense.
a good question. That actually is a good question. I bet 50% of Florida State fans would root for Florida. Maybe more. They were playing Texas A&M.
That's bad, and that's bad. I know I'm not supposed to make fun of the customers, but that's bad. No, you never root for Florida.
But don't you? I mean, I bet there's a chance. But I might be overshooting.
No,
that.
You're right. No, there'd be a large chunk. There'd be a very large chunk of fans that would.
Let me ask you this: so when Florida will probably play Texas A&M at some point while Jimbo's there, who do you think Florida State fans will root for in that game?
I think by the time it rolls around, who knows, maybe 2 or 3 years on that rotational thing between the intra-division sort of stuff, I would think it would be probably 75-25 at the most liberal estimate for Florida being rooted against. I mean, or no.
Yeah, man. Hey, man, they might play in the SEC championship game this year.
Touche.
I had to pull off a few upsets, but it could happen.
Right. Maybe they could even play for the national title like Georgia and Alabama did. And Texas A&M's already a step ahead of the game because they already have a trophy kind of ready for Jimbo Fisher. What were your thoughts on that? Apparently, folks, the chancellor or the president of Texas A&M has already created a plaque that says Texas A&M national champions 20 -- so he doesn't know exactly what year in this millennia it will be, but he put Jimbo Fisher's name on it. Head football coach Jimbo Fisher, national champion, Texas A&M, the year 20, and then he left the last 2 digits blank. It caught storm on the internet. Much ridicule was brought about. And Jimbo doesn't know the way social media works, but this sort of stuff doesn't. So it's not so much it goes viral, but something like that even happening is going to make its way onto the internet, and it's absurd. Like this day looks so silly right now.
It's embarrassing. I mean, it makes UCF fans look like sane for claiming a 2017 national title. It's preposterous, man. You kind of chuckle because of all the issues he had with the Florida State administration and the way they did things. They never did anything like that. They could just go dust off the ones they won, after color TV was invented. They don't have to make up fancy new, fake ones. And there's a couple issues I have with it. Number one, if you're going to do something like that, don't let people know about it. Give it to them and just say, hey, I have confidence you're going to do this one day. Put this somewhere so when you win the real one, we can put them side by side. Something like that. Don't advertise it. Don't publicize it because it's embarrassing. I would imagine most Aggie fans are ashamed of it.
How did it?
But also,
I don't even know how it happened. How did it happen?
What do they do if they do win one? Oh, I don't know how it happened. The chancellor just decided to do it.
I mean, why? Who in the office was like, let's take a photo of this and put it on the internet? I mean, they had to know that they were going to get absolutely destroyed for it. Like you just totally burnt yourself.
That's a good question. I don't know who exactly publicized it and took the picture and put it out there. Maybe Andrea Adelson. I'm not sure. I think she might have taken the picture. It was on her Twitter feed. But either way, so that's number one. If you're going to do something that embarrassing, don't make it public. But also, what happens if they do win one? What do they do with that one? Do they chisel the numbers in? Because he put a blank after the 2 and the 0. So if they win one in 2026, are they going to take that trophy back to the trophy maker and chisel 2026 because you get the real one? So you don't need that one anymore anyway. It's just ridiculous. I hope he throws it out in his yard like he did that damn Christmas tree. And it just shows people. I can say that, right? I didn't mean to cuss. I'm sorry, folks.
You're fine.
But yeah, I mean, it's just that would set the internet on fire if tomorrow in Jimbo's yard that plaque was just sitting out there by the curb, which is where it belongs because that guy's won a real national title. He doesn't need fake trophies, a participation future fake news trophy. He's got a real one that he won. But that's A&M for you. They're not used to winning the. As I tweeted out, it's almost like they lost the 1939 one.
Yeah.
So they have where that might be in a who knows what those even looked like back then. It might have just been a jug. So
just a bowl of dirt.
So it's not real impressive. So they need something for their fancy trophy cases that no trophies are in.
Yeah, that's why they're able to build all these facilities because they don't need any room for trophy cases. The backstory on this.
Well, they do now.
Yeah,
they do now. If
clearly,
they're fake ones.
Clearly. So the backstory on this: apparently, the chancellor presented Texas A&M Commerce's head football coach Colby Carthel with an identical plaque because the Texas A&M Commerce Lions actually won the 2017 Division II National Championship. During the presentation, Chancellor Sharp said the only difference between Colby's and yours, Jimbo, is you get to fill in the date. Fisher responded with a laugh and added, I hope I fill in a couple. Probably not going to happen, Jimbo. Probably not going to happen. But, hey, man, shoot for the stars.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
That's a good line by Jimbo.
Yeah, shoot for the moon, land amongst the stars or something like that, and then, just watch, Auburn beat you and Ole Miss beat you and Alabama beat you and then Texas A&M just become just a running joke. It'll be fun, Jimbo. But that trophy, that plaque, it'll keep you warm at night. A parting shot on that or two, perhaps, when we come right back with more Wake Up War Chant.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
He's Corey Clark, senior writer for WarChant.com. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, director of digital media for the same website. This show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. Go and check out Township tonight, folks, if you're around. It's German night. They'll have schnitzels galore, I imagine, probably some pretzels, assorted dipping sauces, as well as German and German-style beers. Again, German night over at Township. Check it on out. All right, Corey, so
hopefully they'll have some Hasselhoff playing on the speakers.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know he's big. He's big in Germany. Maybe some. I was going to say Wilco, but I don't know. I don't know why would I think they're German. They're not German. But Hasselhoff, play a little Hasselhoff.
Yeah, all right. We'll see if we get that on the old playlist there. All right. So previous segment we talked about this whole Texas A&M chancellor giving Jimbo a fill in the blank national championship trophy plaque to sort of, I guess, motivate Jimbo and again, as Corey pointed out previous segment, it's probably not fair to blame this on Jimbo. Obviously, I'm sure it wasn't his idea. He probably doesn't like it, and now that it's actually publicized, probably is absolutely mortified. This is my thing, though. He had to know who he was getting in bed with. These people are just different, man. They're so starved for a championship. I mean, he knew who he was getting in bed with. He knows what the whole payoff here is, the exchange. The $75 million isn't to simply get this program maybe back on track. It's national championship or bust. So I'm not going to feel too bad for him right now. This is sort of what happens, man. The $75 million doesn't come without a price tag itself, and it doesn't necessarily involve stress on Saturdays in September, October, November. You're dealing with people who are now invested and to a certain extent own you, and they're just so rabid and desperate for a win that they're going to do things like this. And they're so far removed from actually winning that this doesn't seem like a terrible idea. Because anybody who's actually won something would be like, this is a terrible idea, Corey.
Well, yeah, and it is a terrible idea. And I guess it's just that it's also like them, Texas A&M really hasn't been relevant in my lifetime. They had the wrecking crew in the early 90s with Clinton Coriat and a couple other guys that were really good players.
R.C. Slocum was decent,
nice years. I think he might be a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, he had some really good years at A&M. But even then, they never came close to playing for a national title. I think they've won one conference title in the last 20, 25 years. And ironically, it was when they helped Florida State get to the 98 national title game because they knocked off Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. So, Texas A&M's done all right by Florida State, but they're just not used to playing for championships. And again, it's a high schoolish type move. Like programs that are used to winning things don't have to make up funny, goofy trophies for their head coach. They just don't. And also, why put that kind of pressure on the guy?
Because you paid him $75 million, Corey. There's no putting pressure on the guy. This is what they signed up for. Everybody's on the same page. You're not paying $75 million for 9 wins. He knows what he signed up for.
No, I know what he signed up for, and I know he knows what he signed up for. But to think Jimbo Fisher is just going to miraculously start giving you championships is preposterous. He did it once with an all-time great team and an all-time great quarterback. I don't know that he gets that magic again in College Station, but it's almost like they think they've got this guy that can't miss. And Jimbo Fisher can miss. He missed 12 out of his last 29 games at Florida State. He can miss. And to be even putting that out there in the universe that you're expecting him to win a national championship or multiple national championships because he won one at Florida State, as if Florida State and Texas A&M are anywhere close to the same types of programs with history and tradition, is bizarre. But that's a bizarre place out there, man. It's, God love them. Like we talked about yesterday, everybody loves farmers. We need agriculture. We need those people out there doing their thing in the Dust Bowl. But it's a rare place out there. It's just it's a different kind of mentality. And I'm really interested how he handles it, how he deals with it. Because Florida State's pretty dang laid back, and he still complained about the people at Florida State. So I wonder how he's going to handle things like this, because he obviously knows he's getting killed about it. And I wonder how behind the scenes, who he's taking it out on, or if he is at all.
I mean, you're talking about unintended consequences, but I don't even know if you can call this an unintended consequence of taking $75 million and going. And you got it. You're such good friends with Scott Woodward. If you're Jimbo Fisher, you have to have a pulse of who you're dealing with. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't factor into a coach when he's leaving somewhere. Like, hey, Scott, who am I dealing with, man? Who are my constituents? What's the pulse of this town? What are the expectations? Because again, man, Florida State. I mean, this is. I mean, Willie Taggart right now is just. Everyone's letting him do his thing. There's good vibes. There's optimism, but nothing bizarre like this going on. I mean, I think most people are at least saying right now, we'll see how they react in November, but they're not expecting a national championship. They're not expecting a playoff. They're expecting probably 2 or 3 losses. But, I mean, this guy out the gate, this is what happens when you make $75 million, though. And real quickly as well, as you pointed out, the last conference title that Texas A&M won was 1998. They went 11-3, so they have that to fall back on. This is something I want to pivot to right now, Corey. It might not be a comfortable thing to talk about, or it's a lot of conjecture. And people want to know the answer kind of in this next volume of the Jimbo Chronicles that it's expected out on War Chant probably in the next few weeks or whatnot. Like, when did Jimbo finally, or, when did Jimbo know he was kind of leaving? And this all ties back into, you know who you're getting into bed with, because I feel like Scott Woodward, when he went on Paul Feinbaum's show in Destin during the SEC, coaches meetings, and pretty much said right then and there, Kevin Sumlin has to win more, and he knows what he has to do to keep his job. I feel like at that point, Kevin Sumlin was fired. A lot of people thought that. Nobody really knew if they had somebody in mind and ready to move on at that point. But I feel like in hindsight, if you're going to go ahead and fire somebody like that practically on national television and basically say this guy's got to win big, a.k.a. national championship or SEC championship, or he's done for, that at that point Scott Woodward knew something was cooking, something was brewing. I'm not saying Jimbo Fisher agreed to the job in May, but November, October, that sort of stuff, I feel like one foot was definitely out the door before the season even started.
Yeah, I don't know if a foot was out the door, but I know an eye was an eye was on College Station. I do think that. I think at least one eye was wandering over there. But again, there's a chance, I think before the season, I do think Jimbo thought he was going to have a really good team. And, he didn't know how Texas A&M's job was going to transpire. He didn't know that Sumlin would blow a, whatever it was, 35-point lead on opening night. And that was kind of Sumlin wasn't going to survive that. So I think.
But he was good friends with Scott Woodward, and Scott Woodward goes on the Paul Feinbaum show on the SEC Network and lays out a very nebulous ultimatum for the head coach. It did not sound very encouraging. I mean, Kevin Sumlin started 2017, with a hand tied behind his back almost, or just really bad energy around him and his program when your boss goes and lays a statement like that out for public consumption.
Well, right, but I don't think it meant he had to win a championship or bust. I think 11-2 might have, especially depending on who the losses are. I think there were some scenarios where there's no way you can fire him. It turned out that there was plenty of reason to fire him. So that worked out for Woodward. But no, I do think that just like Stan Wilcox, he had a list in his desk before the season started. Now, he wasn't thinking he'd be firing his head coach, but he knew his head coach other people would be pursuing his head coach, whether it be another SEC West team or an NFL team. And so he had a list of coaches in mind. I don't think Scott Woodward had a list. I think he had a person. I think that's the difference. But again, just because he wanted Jimbo doesn't mean Jimbo was definitely going. I think it I don't think Jimbo knew for sure he was going. I certainly don't think it was in September. Now, I think maybe as the season went on, it became more and more appealing, the thought. But I don't think he knew for sure he was going in September when someone lost that first game. But I think it got a lot more real. And I think it got to the point where Florida State kind of called his bluff, too. Like, I think I'm not 100% convinced he really wanted to go to College Station. I think he was trying to play his hand, and Florida State played it for him. And then it led him to College Station, plus $75 million helped.
Yeah,
but I don't know that he thought he was leaving before the game against Alabama started. In fact, I don't think he thought that. When he saw Francois laid out on the turf, maybe A&M looked a lot more appealing.
My theory is he knew what he had on defense and what he was going to be losing on defense. He knew that this was the last year of Sweat, the last year of Derwin, the last year of Noddy. Matthew Thomas obviously was going to lose his eligibility. And the way the schedule worked out, he had the sort of, the really good boon of potentially beating Alabama. And if you lose that game, everything is still fine. So I feel it's one of those things where, and Scott Woodward talked about, we had this really close relationship and we basically talked to one another and said, listen, we've known each other for so long, we're not going to screw each other over. I just feel like it was one of those things where Jimbo, I don't think he went into 2017 and didn't give his all to Florida State. I think he went into the season knowing that he had a really talented football team and they could potentially do something very special. And I think he knew that, listen, this is probably my last go-around at Florida State. This is a good time to go out in terms of this is a really good amount of talent that we have. And if it doesn't work out, then I can always go to A&M. So that's sort of my belief, man. I feel like he went all in on 2017, and then when he knew that nothing was going to happen, that's why it deteriorated and disintegrated in such an ugly way. It's because he's like, well, screw this. I've got my other thing lined up, and I'm done here. So we're not done here. We got one more segment. Keep your thought. Let's stay on time. we went really heavy yesterday. I had to do some really interesting stuff to keep us on time and probably upset some sponsors, so let's not do that. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. We're going to come right back after this with more Wake Up War Chant.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
One more segment, then it's Friday for us. Hopefully the remainder of your day, though, goes by nice and smooth. Thanks for being here. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. It's Wake Up War Chant. Corey, I cut you off, but go ahead, finish your sort of thought, I guess, in terms of Jimbo, when he was leaving, if he was leaving, wasn't leaving, that sort of stuff.
Well, I think one thing that I mentioned as the season was going on is that I don't think he wanted to fire people. And I think it's not so much that, I think A&M was kind of that life raft where he didn't have to fire his friend or his guys that he was friendly with. He didn't want to fire Rick Trickett. Well, now he doesn't have to. He's got a whole other job waiting for him. And I don't know why. Jimbo never struck me as somebody that really cared about people's feelings, but I think he did respect those guys in that room, and that was really something he was going to struggle with because he knew he had to fire people because what had happened wasn't acceptable, and the Florida State fan base wasn't going to accept the exact same coaching staff coming back from a 5-6 team. So, it gave him a life raft. And like I've said a million times, it's a good divorce for both parties. Yeah. It didn't end amicably, but it's funny. I just remembered this as we were having this conversation. Maybe in 2011 or 2012, Jimbo used to talk to us a lot after he'd get done with his press conference, just kind of shoot the breeze afterwards without cameras or microphones rolling. And he said, I remember specifically, he said, you can only really stay about 5 or 6 years in a place anymore anyway, before it just gets to be too much. And the expectations get too high. This was before he won a championship. Before expectations get too high, it gets stale, the message gets lost. So even back in 2010 or 11, whenever that conversation was, he was thinking that he probably wouldn't be here for 20 years. He just thinks that, and he wasn't saying that just for him. He was just saying in college football in general, most coaches, it wears, after 6, 7, 8 years, you need something new. So, it was just a perfect time for him to do that. It just so happened to coincide with the worst season Florida State had in 40 years.
All right, I'll get the final word on this because I've got the big microphone and the big comfy chair at the big comfy station. I see some validity in the whole sort of fact that maybe he's scared about firing, his assistants. But if you're not going to take any of them with you, then, aren't you pretty much firing them anyway? So, I don't know. We'll never know. Really, who cares? I know everybody thinking the same thing because I'm slowly coming to the bright side.
Can I ask you a question real quick, though, about Jimbo, just real quick?
Sure.
Would you rather, you went to Florida State.
Correct.
So would you rather Florida State win a national championship or Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher win a national championship, if you had to choose?
We'll save that for the mailbag on Friday, and it's a good reminder. Good segue there. Submit your questions on the Tribal Council.
One.
Yeah, go to warchant.com, Tribal Council, submit your question on the Renegade Express mailbag. We'll answer your questions tomorrow on the program. This show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. College Town, 3 great locations. Parking in the first 2 decks of the parking garage, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So take advantage of that. Back to shirtless photos of guys. So as much as like the wide receivers were titillating, and it was like, ooh, look at these guys. They look kind of mean. They look big. They look physical. A little underwhelmed by the photo of the linebackers. The linebackers to me look like if that was Alabama, that would be their secondary. And I guess we kind of know this already because the linebacker position is quite thin right now. And hey, everybody, Emmett Rice was pictured. I guess Emmett Rice's health is supposedly some sort of subplot of the offseason that I wasn't aware of, but he was there in the photo, shirtless, quite ripped, no braces or anything that looked to be on his ankle. So there is that after all. But linebacker position, I started going on this riff. I believe that I thought linebacker play in this day and age was becoming a little bit obsolete or overrated. It was all about pass rushers and guys on the outside that can cover, in terms of cornerbacks. But I feel like maybe some of Florida State's problems have been really shoddy linebacker play, and there's talent there. But I don't know. I just have this feeling of linebackers need to be 6'3", 240 pounds, and Telvin is the exception to the rule.
Yeah, but I don't think most schools have them like that. Alabama does. They always do. But I don't know that most colleges have those guys that are the the 245-pound guys that can really run. And I think, the Jackson kid is bigger than you think. But, yeah, I think they want, they kind of been recruiting speed. And you hope, those guys aren't the biggest in the world. It's hard for me to judge shirtless picks.
Come on.
They would literally all in my life if they wanted to in like 9 seconds. They're certainly big enough for normal human beings. So, it's hard for me to judge, but
that's the one position that I would think there has to be an instant sort of jolt to it. And with Harlan Barnett's sort of attitude and personality of playing fast and aggressive and wanting to hit people, linebackers that's what they're created for pretty much, right? Like that's been their role since the beginning of football, since they literally took, a bladder out of a pig and Princeton and Rutgers actually decided to play a competitive collegiate tackle football game.
Yeah, the linebacker play, that has been a weak spot ever since the championship season, quite frankly. Matthew Thomas certainly had some moments when he was, number one, eligible and then engaged and playing well and playing hard. He was a pretty talented dude. But other than that, man, they just haven't had great linebacker play in a while, and they need to go find some. And maybe they're already on the roster, but they need to go get themselves some linebackers.
A cool thing I saw, apparently, an assistant strength coach has been posting some videos, or he posted a video of a couple of the guys. This is apparently now after the chase had been performed for the day. Gabe Neighbors, Jonathan Vickers, and Cam Akers all doing doubles, which is 2 reps on really heavy squats. Cam Akers and Vickers did 450 flipping, or 500 pounds. I think Neighbors did 450. So these dudes are strong. Yeah, Neighbors did 455 for 2 reps. Jonathan Vickers, who this guy actually listed as a tight end. I don't know if he maybe just, spilled the beans on a position change, but he listed Jonathan Vickers as a tight end, and Cam Akers. Dude, squat. These are legitimate squats. These are like deep rear end in the grass, but a different word for rear end that rhymes with grass. Great form. Dude, Cam Akers is just a beast. So maybe linebackers not as bold and built as one would hope, but the backfield is going to be ridiculous. Gabe Neighbors he also has down as a tight end too. I guess maybe there's no fullbacks in Willie's repertoire, so they're going to be tight ends.
I guess not, but I did notice that too, that both Vickers and Neighbors were listed as tight ends. And they're gonna have a good. Cam Akers is pretty good. Not too shoddy. Not too shoddy, that guy.
Not too shoddy at all, that guy. So spring football is 20 days away, Corey. Are you excited for spring football? I'll always remember this. Bob Thomas, who now works in sports information, we had gone up and down in the elevator for a spring practice back in 2005, I think, and we were being sent on a goose. They were going to do interviews on the field, and they decided to do them upstairs, and then I think they did it back on the field. And I've only heard somebody use this word once in my life, and I've always used it in crazy situations. But we all get in the elevator. There's about 5 of us, and it's quiet. Everybody's frustrating, and Bob Thomas just kind of shakes his head and is like, spring football is absolute buffoonery. Buffoonery is a really strong word. I love it. And you can imagine Bob Thomas delivering it, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's perfect, Bob. And, I'm not a real big fan of spring practice. It's kind of boring, and especially when there's not a QB battle going on, and there won't be this one because of
what?
Because of the injury.
Come on, Bailey Hockman, man. Team Hockman.
You're right. Bailey Hockman, I forgot.
Respect.
Bailey Hockman's there. But I think this will be. I think people are really excited for this one. So it's not straight buffoonery this time around, but maybe in years ahead, we'll think of it more as buffoonery. But it isn't real football, and you watch about 9 minutes of the game, and you're like, oh yeah, you're like all excited because it's football. But then 9 minutes in, you're like, oh, yeah, this isn't really football.
That's such a pessimistic look at things.
The Combine's coming up, too. That's exciting. We got the Combine starting. And Florida State's got like 8 or 9 guys up there, yeah.
You're talking about spring football not being real football. And they're like, oh, hey, how about dudes in spandex not doing anything? The Underwear Olympics, as Mike Mayock calls it.
That people like that stuff. But, what made me think of that is because Pro Day is the day before spring practice starts. So those guys will be running then. But, I am really interested to see, what Derwin does. It's weird. So I did ask Jimbo. It was before Jalen went to the Combine. I'm like, man, what is he going to do with the Combine? And he just kind of, he raised his eyes. He's like, man, they haven't seen many dudes like him. And I said, yeah, man, and I bet Derwin's not going to be bad either in a couple years. But yeah, I know Derwin's not the athlete that Jalen is. And Jimbo's like, oh, wait, no. He's every bit the athlete that Jalen is. He's going to do all those same things that Jalen did. So I'm really interested to see what Derwin does on the vertical, on the cone, the cone stuff and the 40 if he runs it. Because that guy is a crazy freak for his size.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
And another great Jimbo Fisher defensive back.
Yeah. Put that on your graphic, Tim Brewster. Yeah, I don't know. It's always going to be a bittersweet thing when you think of Derwin. He's almost going to be like an Antonio Cromartie for us. Just all this great potential that just never was really ever on display for at least the college fan in us to enjoy. But hopefully he'll have an illustrious and a long-lasting NFL career. I want to see how Tavares McFadden is going to do, and I want to see how Josh Sweat's going to go, because Josh Sweat to me is like the biggest enigma, because we kept hearing about how strong he was and how important he is, and he's not a guy that stuffs the stat sheet, but I don't know. Maybe it's the hair. Maybe it's the hair, and we all thought he was going to be the next Jadeveon Clowney, and he was going to rack up sacks, and that never seemed to be part of his game. I guess he was one of those guys that held the point of attack, but when your linebackers aren't coming up and making plays all the time, it's hard to sort of enjoy that. But I kind of want to see what the assessment's going to be of tea time, Tavares McFadden, and obviously I want to see what he's going to test out to. But I want to hear what people think about Josh Sweat, because you guys make it sound like Josh Sweat's a really cool dude, very, very conscientious young man.
Yeah, he was great to talk to. We didn't get to talk to him a lot, like most of the kids on the team. But when we did, he was a really thoughtful, insightful guy, and I wish he was coming back for one more year. And I was going to ask you, say Tavares McFadden runs a 4.38 and has a 39 or a 41-inch vertical. Would you draft him in the first 3 rounds?
Yeah.
What about the first round?
Oh yeah, I'd draft him first round. I would, yeah. Those numbers, yeah.
No. Because you saw it's on the tape.
It is.
Like
I don't like his coach. I don't like his coach.
You what?
I don't like his coach. I don't think he was coached very well. I think I saw a lost coach. I saw his position coach as a guy who was lost when the camera was on him. He looked frozen. Didn't look like he knew what he wanted to do. He was a guy that just simply, I don't think, put his guys in very good situations. But there's on the tape. I mean, I joked about with one of my former coworkers that, McFadden was the ultimate boom bust guy. He's either going to pick it off or he's going to let 6 points go behind him. So, I don't know, man. I think with those measurables and then the fact that he's 6'1", 6'2", 200 whatever pounds, in the NFL, you need guys that can cover it. That he'll go first round. But
he better run. He better run, because if he doesn't put up a really good time, I just can't imagine it, man. I can't imagine a first-round cornerback who gave up, 10 touchdowns in 2 years? Like, I would just have a real hard, because it's only going to get harder. The guys on the Eagles are better than the guys at Wake Forest. So, I would have a real hard time thinking he's going to and look, he does have the measurables, and he had a really good sophomore season, second half of his sophomore season. But, man, his junior year, it wasn't just that he gave up touchdowns. He just didn't seem to play all that hard. And, then you wonder, how hard is he going to play if he's already made his money? So I'm going to be really interested in his draft journey, because he does have the talent. He has some natural God-given ability, and he's made plays at the college level, but he's also given plenty up. And I wonder what he can do at the combine to kind of offset what they're going to see on tape from his junior year.
Think about this for the next
23 and a half
hours.
He's definitely worth a second or third. I think he's worth a third-round pick for sure. I would have a real hard time in the first 2 rounds drafting that kid.
Think about this for the next 23 and a half hours as we're off. A guy in the front office of an NFL team thought it was a good idea to give Mike Glennon $18 million guaranteed. Mike Glennon now does not have an NFL team to play for. They'll give you a chance at those positions, man. If you have some semblance of a look, a build, they'll give it to you, man. And cornerback is up there with quarterback in terms of guys they'll take chances on. So we'll see soon enough in Indianapolis when it all goes down. That's a wrap for today's show, and we see you guys again, or talk to you rather. It'll be Friday. We can't wait. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source, knows now is a time of true excitement for Nole fans everywhere. That's why WarChant.com is especially proud to announce its newest team member, senior writer Corey Clark. Combine Corey's expertise with owner Gene Williams and managing editor Ira Schoffel, and and WarChant.com boasts nearly 50 years of experience covering the team you love. It's Taggart time in Tallahassee, and that means now is the perfect time to sign up for your free 30-day trial. From National Signing Day to March Madness, WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.